This is 3,000 times magnification, at 5 microns this size. So it gives you, and you can see the porous structure of this little dude.
Okay, let me stop it right there. Now, he thinks that he is looking at the porous structure of zeolite. No, you're just seeing the crystals. Now, I'm not saying that's not porous, but you are not seeing the zeolite cages. This is not the porous structure that we talk about when we talk about zeolite. The line you see on that photo where it says 5 microns, that little that's 5 microns, that line is about maybe 17,000 atoms across, okay? Within that space, there could be maybe 5,000 or 10,000 zeolite cages, okay? Hey guys, this is Victor, the Wise Traditions nutritionist from Vitagenics, and today I have something pretty funny for you, which you probably already noticed from the clip that preceded this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about zeolite to help you understand zeolite and to help you understand why certain zeolites are better than others. And I did a review of some other product, and then I was contacted by the company, and the product is just not good. From what I can see, it's all marketing material. And then when you're going to see me review it, and I'm reviewing videos where there's conversation between the owner or the president or founder, whatever, and their scientists, which have PhDs, etc., and yet nobody seems to understand the science. It's really not that difficult, and I'm going to break down some simple points. I'm going to point out some of the things that were ridiculous to me, which you just saw in the opening clip. So anyway, yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy my rather sometimes animated critique of what you're about to see. And yeah, hey, if you like the video, subscribe, and I hope you learned something from this. Thanks for watching. You can't see the zeolite cage in a photograph like this. No. So now the companies that can do it, like PB and PBX, they want to break down these beautiful crystals even smaller because that gives, again, more surface area. And again, it allows for actual sublingual absorption. It allows the small pieces to become colloids and to be able to disperse like anywhere in the body. The root zeolite, which we're looking at here, cannot do that. It is far too large. So again, you're demonstrating, and I'm sorry to say, but the scientists are sitting right there. They're demonstrating to me that they don't understand what zeolite actually is because you can't see the cage. What you're looking at is a crystalline structure. All right, you're not looking at the cage, the sieve, the net, etc. that we talk about that actually captures and holds heavy metal ions. No, you can't see those porous structures in the zeolite. Okay, but thank you for giving me this opportunity. They are nice pictures. But they just show me that your zeolite is not too, I don't want to say too large because I like larger zeolites. But again, I know larger zeolites that are safe and proven and effective that I can use to augment the PB and PBX. But, I don't see anything special here about the root product.
And we're anywhere from around 2, 3, upwards of 100.
So again, he goes on about this, talking about this size stuff, and it's just not. It doesn't make any sense. It's incorrect. It's scientifically wrong. Tons of studies out there that you can go and you can see hundreds of other scientists telling you what I'm telling you. Now, zeolite, most of the zeolites out there, they are a powder that basically go into your gut, right? And the very best powders will get a little bit close to the size of PB, and so a little bit will get into the blood. But again, not this root product. I'm sorry again to say, Clayton, but there's just absolutely no evidence that shows that your zeolite is getting absorbed. So it's working through the gut. And again, as I said, there are many great zeolite powders that do work through the gut, and they do a great job. And it is true also, like, the larger crystalline structure and stuff, yeah, might capture some things. It's because, again, we do absorb things on the surface, but again, smaller is better. You do want a range of sizes. A range of sizes is nice, which is why I like using PBX and PB together. And sometimes I do actually like to add a third larger zeolite because the range of sizes is nice. Okay, and I talk about that. Actually, I have another video where I talk about that, so I won't go into detail with that here. Okay, so let me just give you a little bit of background in understanding zeolite. In this case, this graph here, you see that bell curve. I'm actually using a competitor's analysis of their zeolite, and you can see I've got the PBX, which is the green box. The PBX is the zeolite that I use, and it's so small it wouldn't even fit on this graph. So it would be basically off the graph. And then we have the PB zeolite, which again is another product or companion product. I like to use the PBX and the PB together. And you can see that the PB falls right into that typical sublingual range. The PB is actually intended for the digestive tract, but the smaller parts of the PB will get absorbed sublingually. And of course, the PBX is a total sublingual zeolite spray because the zeolite has been ground down very, very, very small, and then it can just be suspended, or actually we say a colloid, in the water. Now, I also like to use other larger zeolites, and you'll hear me talk about like a TMA zeolite or TMAZ. This is a very special process, and there are many good zeolite powders in the world. They've been around for a long time. They're tested, they're trusted, and I've used different ones, and I sometimes recommend different ones, and I'm still looking for a good larger powder that covers kind of the range that you see here. But this company, actually the company is called Root, and they are trying to talk about their product being able to get into the bloodstream and passing the blood-brain barrier, being absorbed sublingually, and that is simply false. Cannot happen. And you can see here, again, I'm using their information. This is their graph showing their product range is between 1 and 100 microns. You're not getting sublingual absorption there. Now that size range is good for the digestive tract. So I'm not criticizing the idea. I actually like the size range. This is larger than anything I would ever recommend or use. But again, there are many other proven products that I know are safe, that have test data, etc., that I can use to focus more on the digestive tract, along with a lot of different clays that I like to use. So again, this particular graph showing me this bell curve it just proves the point that their marketing is false. Okay, so the Root product brand is using false marketing, and they are misrepresenting the product, and what they're doing to users is not cool in my opinion. And so I just wanted to give the science and speak clearly, because in their videos I'm not seeing any science, or I am seeing science that is grossly misrepresented. So anyway, go ahead and enjoy the rest of the video, and thank you for watching. So I had to just show another comment here that I already talked about, but I want you to hear his words.
So you're right in this range. So they're claiming to be the same size as a virus, which doesn't give you any benefit, and it's too small, because to get this type of lattice structure, this crystalline structure, to something that small, you're basically denaturing the cage structure, which is...
That was absolutely crazy. To get the cage structure that small, You don't change the cage structure of zeolite. The cage structure of zeolite is formed when the volcanic lava hits the ocean, okay? And it's between 3 and 8 angstroms, depending on the exact zeolite. That cage structure is always the same. You don't shrink the cage structure. You're just breaking up the crystal to expose more cage openings. If you can do that, if you can make it that small, okay? So this again, and there's a scientist on this call, there's a PhD on this call that does not interject, that never explains this about the zeolite, okay? The zeolite cages are a fixed size. There's nothing you can do to change that, okay? You can choose a different zeolite. There are companies, there are like 150 artificial zeolites to play with things like that. But the zeolite that we're talking about here, or there is one synthetic here, the TRS, which again that's a nightmare. So just, I agree with him there when he's railing against that product. So anyway, you heard his words flat out. I'm sorry, Clayton. I'm sure you're a nice guy, but you do not understand what the zeolite actually is. And so this is not making any sense here. And look, I'm always here, so anybody can correct me if I'm wrong.
You want something that's as small as an atom or as small as DNA, and you're working with a crystalline lattice structure that's like a honeycomb. So if that is broken apart, you still want it in fragment ranges and micron ranges.
Okay, let me just pause again. He was insinuating that some of the products are claiming to be the size of an atom. None of the products claim to be the size of an atom, but they do claim to be about as small as about 3 atom widths. Okay, in the smallest cases here, like if it got down to 1 nanometer. And you've got to understand that technically, scientifically, it is possible to have a zeolite cage that is only about 3 widths of an atom, of an average atom, or about 1 nanometer. Okay. He then goes on to explain more about the size, which is going to disagree with what I already said, but I'm going to let you listen to his words, and then I'm going to explain again why that's no good. And also notice he just mentioned about the honeycomb, but he never talks about the size. The honeycomb he's talking about is actually the cage, which is again about the size of an atom, 1 to 3 atom widths.
In here, so it has the ability to work with cells, permeate some membranes. You want it the same size as some of these cells here?
No, you cannot permeate the membranes at that size. So, so for example, if the blood cells, you can see in the picture here, right? You've got blood cells in the photo. They don't just like leave your blood vessels and such and go anywhere they want. No, they're too large. And so it's the same thing with the zeolite. You're not going to get zeolite fragments that large flown around in your blood. It's not going to happen. Okay, the zeolite must be much smaller than that. Okay, so the zeolite, as I mentioned before, it has to get down to like the 300 nanometer size at least, or the 0.3 microns. Okay, and when you're looking up here, you're much bigger than that. Okay.
But you want it to be able to grab these guys. If you even claim to have something down here, I mean, you're smaller than quantum dots, so in carbon nanotubes, in true nanotechnology. So this lets you know that if this is true, there's no benefit in using it, and there's been no measurement to validate this.
Okay, so both statements there are false. Why is he saying that it's of no use? And again, the pure body it is validated. So this is blowing smoke. There's no facts to support it. There's no science to support it. again, you got to talk about the chemistry and the physics. Understand what is the size of an ion. That's never discussed here, okay? A water molecule fits in the size of a cage, but the cage is not much bigger than a molecule or a heavy metal ion. And so you can have a cage that is just big enough to hold that.
Because they can't measure that. But they're claiming something that's as small as really small molecules. So I'm not going to say they're lying, but I'm saying that I would never put that in my body. And one of the other things that's really important here,
he doesn't explain why he wouldn't put that into his body again. Actually, he just covered up. I wanted to show you one more thing here. I use his own chart. So I was just explaining to you about the size and using his chart. So that it's not his chart, but this basic chart of biological and technological scale is fine. It's an accurate chart. And the smallest zeolites are going to be way down. And you have to understand, if you've got something if you've got 1 nanometer of space, you can hold about 30 metal atoms in that space. If I go up to just 5 nanometers, I can hold like 4,000 atoms in that space. And these numbers change dramatically depending on how they are bonded. A metal, meaning like if I had pure mercury or pure silver, the metallic bonds, the atoms are just kind of like together. But when I have a covalent bond, when I start building a structure like zeolite, those atoms come much closer together. The bonds pull them together. They get integrated. And so you fit many more atoms in a smaller space. Not only that, but of course, each atom is a different size. Okay, so when we're talking about zeolite, we're talking about atoms that are even smaller. Okay, we're talking about oxygen, aluminum, silica. These are on the smaller end of the spectrum. And so when you look at something, for example, like a water molecule, which is 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom tightly bound, they're still smaller than like an aluminum atom, or I'm sorry, than like a mercury atom. Okay, so you've got to understand what's going on with the chemistry and the physics, and you've got to understand how that translates into real physical size. Nowhere in this presentation do they show understanding of the actual physical size. You are being misled with this information. The information presented here is false. There are no cages to capture viruses. That does not happen. Okay, no way. Zeolite does not need to trap everything in a small, tiny cage that only spans 1 to 3 atoms in size. Okay, it's just not correct information.
Yeah.
Again, why does he say there's no benefit in using it? All right. Now, he does something interesting later on in his presentation, and he has other presentations where he talks about testimonials. All of these products have great testimonials. The worst zeolite in the world has great testimonials. The most toxic drugs in the world, chemotherapy, radiation, any antibiotic, whatever drug that is created has great testimonials. Do I recommend them? No, because they only are good for a small percentage of people, or some percentage of people. The other people suffer from severe consequences, often long-term, often undetected for a long time. So this is the reason why I don't just generally recommend zeolite. You need to know the product. You need to know it's been cleaned properly. You need to know it's structurally intact. You need to know that it is the proper zeolite. Okay, it can't be some kind of synthetic, or even, there are many other natural zeolites too. There's over 200 zeolites, and there's only one that I would use. So anyway, again, there's a lot of misdirection and stuff here, but there is not a lot of scientific fact. There are a lot of false statements, as I've been pointing out, and there are more later on in the video, but I'm already talking too much about this stuff. So let me move on. Okay, so he points at Pure Body and says they claim that it has a 0.3 micron size. He says it's mislabeled. Nowhere in this 1 hour video is there ever any proof. Now, Pure Body is like the only zeolite, Pure Body and the PB, it's called PB, and PBX, they have the third-party scientific analysis on their website. You can see it, I've shown it, I've got it posted on the web. If you go to the product, to my product page or anybody's product page that's selling PB or PBX, you're going to see the third-party analysis that shows this size is confirmed. There is nothing mislabeled. Okay, so I can't see any confirmation in the root products, so I'm not sure what he's referring to here. The other thing, he mentions about being preserved properly. Look, zeolite does not need to be preserved. Zeolite is used in water treatment, okay? So why would you add preservatives to a zeolite that is in water? You don't do that. And he talks about this later also, because he puts preservatives in his zeolite product. I can't get this. Another thing that's very funny to me, he mentions in this video that we should be taking only things from nature. Again, why is he adding preservatives to the natural zeolite? No, I can't see. Show me scientific reasoning for that. Show me studies. You know, we've got hundreds, thousands of studies on hundreds of different kinds of zeolite. And, you know, zeolite is used very widely in the industry. And the best products do not have anything mixed with the zeolite. Nothing. The zeolite stands on its own, and you can put it in water. Same thing with clay. We don't put preservatives in clay. The clay and zeolite are there to pull the preservatives out of our body. Okay, so anyway, enough on that. Let's continue because I want to really get into the numbers. It's more fun.
Look at is real science. And Dory, you appreciate this because you're smarter than I am and you're a PhD. So this is a biological and technological scale comparison chart, right? And we'll throw in some clean slate here in a second. But if you're claiming that, we'll say 0.9 nanometers in size. Well, let's see, 0.9 nanometers in size is right about here.
Okay, let me pause this for a moment. So I agree with Clayton about the other products, especially TRS. TRS is a dangerous product, and he mentions that. Bravo for that. The other products too, like I said, I don't like any of them for various reasons. However, I cannot really challenge their claim on the size. Now, they don't have testing to show it, so the claim is bogus to me anyway. However, in his speaking here, and when he's showing this chart here is fine, that's cool. But he's claiming that it's impossible to have a 1 nanometer size for a zeolite cage. And that is false. So some of the science that I don't hear anything about in his video will help you to understand, because a zeolite cage can be that small. This picture here, we're showing an atom. On average, an atom will tend to be about the 0.3 nanometers or 300 picometers, we say. And of course, this is crazy tiny, right? A water molecule is about the same size. So it gets a little bit complicated when you start talking about structures and single atoms. Another thing to consider, which they don't talk about at all, your heavy metal ions. These are just atoms, okay? These are single atoms. When you take something like mercury or silver, silver is not toxic, by the way, but if I take like 1 nanometer of silver metal or mercury, there's like maybe 30 atoms in there, okay? They're all bunched together. But if I take something like zeolite, there are different bonds between the chemicals that are in there, and that's like a silica, aluminum, oxygen, and it's indestructible. Okay, so zeolite is indestructible. But that structure bonds very tightly, so you can get more atoms into the same space. And so when you understand this, when you look at the math, you understand how the zeolite can be so small. So for example, the zeolite cage, the space where it traps these toxins, these heavy metals, is only about the size of an atom. It's like from 3 angstroms to 8 angstroms, so it would be able to hold like 2 or 3 atoms, so to say, in one cage. And the zeolite has many cages, but you can break that down so that you've got less cages. And if you could break it down to like 2 nanometers, which is the average size of PBX, you would have a very small piece of crystal that would have, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 cages or something in it, with all of them being exposed. So the PBX zeolite from Touchstone is exponentially more powerful because of the surface area, the ability to grab stuff into the cages. And it's not just about catching stuff in the cage. Okay, so zeolite captures things in 2 different ways. Absorption, where it pulls stuff into the cage, and adsorption, where it grabs stuff onto the surface. Now, when we talk about the larger things here, I can have a huge virus, right? And that virus might be connected to something via a charge. Okay, it's a negative charge, a positive charge. The little tiny zeolite comes over with a huge huge negative charge, and it absorbs the charge from that virus. That virus now floats away freely. Okay? All of the studies, this is not my opinion, okay? There are hundreds of studies out there on PubMed, right, the National Library of Medicine. You can see that little tiny pieces of zeolite can take out toxins far larger. It doesn't squeeze them into the cage. No, it just neutralizes the charge and then they get carried out. We know this. And this is also why all studies show smaller zeolite is much more powerful, right? Because you can have one piece of zeolite, right, that can maybe neutralize 1 virus particle, or you can break that zeolite into 1,000 smaller pieces and now neutralize 1,000 virus particles, or histamine, or whatever it is you're trying to get out of the body. So zeolite works in 2 different ways. It will capture ions with mercury, lead, aluminum, etc., these toxic heavy metals. It will capture them inside the cage, right? But in addition, it will grab other things on the outside that are much larger. So during his presentation here, he ignores all of that. The mathematics are never discussed. The actual atomic and molecular sizes are never discussed when talking about how zeolite works. And the size is the key point. This is really the key. If you can get zeolite so small and make it safe, then it is powerful. The real question is about safety. So again, only PB and PBX have third-party testing to verify the size, to verify the molecular integrity, okay, through X-ray diffraction analysis and the composition, and to verify the chemical constituents, meaning what is actually in the cage before you put it into your body. And you can see clearly that PB and PBX are intact and they are clean. I can't see that with root. I can't see that with any other products that are listed here. PB and PBX are the only ones I see that. If you got that information, show me, because it's not on the root website. You know, it's not anywhere. It's not in this video. Now, in this video, I saw a bunch of other data, but it is not data that confirms the things I just said. I see nothing to confirm the integrity, the cleanliness. You do have something to confirm the size, but your sizes are much larger. And I'm going to get to that now too, because you insinuate many times during this video that your zeolite can be absorbed sublingually. This is not true. If you want sublingual absorption, you have to be between 100 nanometers and 300 nanometers. The pure body zeolite, which you have listed here, is just at the threshold of 300 nanometers. And that is the average size of the pure body zeolite. Now, pure body zeolite is actually intended to target the gut, but they know some of it will get absorbed into the bloodstream, and that's cool too. The pure body extra strength, the PBX, is much, much smaller, and we just spray it into our mouth and it goes right into the bloodstream. Your product root is much larger, and you detail that here in your video. The smallest your product gets is like 900 nanometers, or maybe 887 nanometers is the minimum, right? That is much too large. It's 3 times too big to be absorbed sublingually. You are not getting sublingual absorption, right? If you are, have one of the science, because I don't see science anywhere that shows me that. I see science here that verifies that you are not able to have sublingual absorption. So why are you insinuating that? That product is a much larger powder, right? It's not the size of PB, and it's certainly not the size of PBX. PBX is exponentially smaller than PB, right? So again, the size issue, this is really confusing in your video here. It's not validated by science.